Instead of trying to change the people who don't want to change, or even just try to fit in with the people that you don't fit in with because you're just different.
Yeah.
Go find one or two or three other people that do.
Yes. So I ended up getting into pharma really only because I was gritty enough to bother someone for half a year. And I don't know if that's gritty. That might be stalking. Being a stalker.
Hey, you didn't go to jail, baby. Here we go.
I didn't.
Today, we are bringing you one of the biggest guests we've had on this show, somebody with 20 years experience inside of the industry, as well as being the vice president at Medtronic.
When you are interviewing for an opportunity, whether it's entry level or at an executive level, how clearly you speak through your story and why you are a good fit for the opportunity means more. It brings your resume to life.
Yes. You can tell you've done the training. You can tell you've done the work. And because, again, most people, especially a lot of reps are very extroverted, can talk with anybody, very energetic.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we think that's all it takes. Welcome back to New to Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin, and my friends, today we are bringing you one of the biggest guests we've had on this show, somebody with 20 years experience inside of the industry, as well as being the vice president at Medtronic. And today we're going to dive deeper into Mr. James Watkins' story of how he went from being from a small town of 400 people to getting into the NFL, to then getting into medical device sales as a sales associate, and over 20 years climbing to the top ranks at the largest company in the world. And so today, I am so excited to bring you all one of the best guests we've ever had on here, just from rank, but also not bad looking either. So today we get Mr. James Watkins on the show. How's it going, man?
All is well. I really appreciate that. I feel like there's pressure now. It's like hot in this room. I'm sweating a little bit. But no, I really appreciate you saying those things. And I think that for me, as someone who came from a sales associate to a VP, and technically a former VP at Medtronic, I'm really humbled and but also grateful. So I look forward to this conversation.
It's going to be a great conversation. And the one thing I'm really looking forward to for everyone when we have this conversation is I just want you guys to be able to look at the story and his background of James, of where he came from to where he's at, because I'm going to promise that you will all be able to pull some similarities in your own life to show that it's possible. But I also want everybody to notice one of the things I was talking to my camera guy as we were driving over here is just look at the difference in the level of like reps to VPs, of like how they carry themselves, how they speak, how they talk. And I'm really excited for this conversation. Selfishly, I'm going to learn a lot. So I'm really, I'm excited about it. But James, can we start really where you grew up, right? Like the one thing I think that's super interesting is everyone that thinks people who are extremely successful and made it to these big levels must have came from parents that were extremely successful, that grew up in big cities and must have just had everything like an opportunity given to them. And let's go back to, you grew up in a small town of 400 people in Alabama.
Yes.
And then went through that rank and even got a scholarship at an amazing school. So let's go talk back into what was it like growing up in a town of 400 people? Yeah,
so I'm sure you never heard of it, but it's Hillsboro, Alabama. It's where I grew up. And, you know, for me, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know that, for the most part, people who come from backgrounds like mine and my family's, you're not supposed to end up being in leadership in huge corporations. Yeah. So it really stemmed from my parents. I have great parents, and I'm fortunate to still have them. They're still alive at age 76.
Come on.
Super athletic, super active, even at an older age. But I had a father who finished college, played at Alabama A&M, played football there. He also played for the Pittsburgh Steelers before I was born, before the Steel Curtain, so he didn't get a Super Bowl. But he played receiver. And then my mother is a bookworm. She's a nerd. She has 7 degrees. All she cares about is education. She was a teacher, could have been a superintendent, could have been a principal. She just wanted to educate children. So I grew up in a household where I had, love, but also discipline and focus regarding, athletic endeavors, and also being great at academics and having an expectation to not make an 89, find a way to make it an A. So for me, it was my parents that helped nurture me into what I ended up becoming that I didn't know I could become.
Yep.
Now, also, I'll say this. Growing up, you really don't know what's out there. You only know what you are experiencing. I can remember hating having to do so much reading over the summer and having assignments, more assignments in the summertime than I would have in my academic school year as a student. And also starting the day where my father, obviously, ex-NFL guy, he wouldn't want me to be in the bed after 7 a.m. And there was times as I matured where it went from, okay, you need to make sure you run 30 minutes to, okay, you need to make sure you run 6 miles, which took more than 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
But I look back at that and I can see that he was helping me understand the importance of discipline. Where in an area where there's nothing but cornfields and cotton fields and farms, they helped train me to be focused on what's most important and the small things you need to do in order to be successful with whatever you're a part of. And that kind of led into me getting a scholarship at Vanderbilt, partially because I finished my high school third in my class. Yeah. It wasn't a huge school, public school in Alabama, so, you can say what you want to say about that. Yeah. But still, I competed academically in the same way that I would compete athletically, and my mentality was built to do the best I can in that moment, regardless of what I was doing. Yep. So that allowed me to have an opportunity to go to Vanderbilt, and I had several other schools I could have gone to, but it made the most sense for me to go there, the balance of academics and also athletics. And, after that, I had opportunity shortly to play in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I really appreciate that. Looking back at it, one of the toughest jobs anyone can ever have. Really, really smart people are out there leading these teams as well as playing on the teams, and it's a very physically grinding, tough job. I know now it's safer, maybe a little less physical, but you have some amazing people who are doing those jobs.
I love that, and I'm really excited to have this conversation, how this already started off, because I think one of the things that just from the beginning you were taught, hey, if you want something, you're going to have to work for it. And even if it was not just sports, which I think a lot of young guys get into, we all want to play football, we all want to play basketball. But I think how amazing, first off, that your mom had 7 degrees. Like most of us can't get 1 degree. So I think first off, that's amazing. But that she also pushed you to challenge yourself on something maybe you didn't love as much. Yeah. And then for you, it taught you that grit, that discipline, being able to do it not only from the physical side, which goes over so much in the mental part, but also from the education side. And so you were actually just bred at a young age to be like, hey, this is what we do, because you didn't just get born here to hang out. You're going to go make something of your life, no matter where you come from. Right. And I think I just want to put some encouragement out there, because coming from a small town, my small town is actually a large city to yours. I always tell people I'm like 2,000 people. It's so small that we're talking 400. But why I say that is because I just want to encourage somebody, because I know people reach out to us from small towns. And I know when I was in a small town, sometimes you might feel stuck. You might sometimes feel like, is this it? The only circle even the most successful person in the small town, maybe when you go to somewhere else, it may just look different. Yeah. And when I say success, you guys, all I mean is maybe financial, because I think success looks a lot of different ways. And I think the one thing just coming back after doing this podcast, I actually just came back from small town where my brother lives in a town of under 600 people. Yeah. I think there is something beautiful about being where everyone knows your name, and, you learn about character and what your word says, and having ethics, and going in that world from the small town. But I also just love that your story starts with, hey, you started with grit, you started with discipline, you started with perseverance, getting your start. And can we just talk about for a second how that led into confidence for you throughout your career of going into, let's just even say going into high school? Because someone like yourself, like we were talking off air of, were you coming from a high school where every year someone's getting a massive scholarship to a massive college, or were you one of the few? And you're one of the few. And that's hard to do, right? And there's going to be doubters in the town. There's going to be people saying things, especially when you're a young kid. So can you just kind of talk about, even at a young age, going into that confidence piece from the hard work that you did of, hey, running 6 miles because your dad said you have to?
Yeah, and listen, I didn't want to do it always.
Yeah.
As far as the running, for sure. There were times when my dad was trailing me in his, little Chevrolet truck to make sure I did the running. But what it is, and as an adult who has children now, you are training yourself to keep the promises you made to yourself. Yeah. Now, in this example of my maturing and growing, my parents were instilling values in me, of course.
Yep.
But as an adult, you can see how, I can see now how you grow in your confidence when you say you're going to do something that's for you. That's for James, that's for Jacob.
Yep.
And you finish it before that day is over, before you lay your head on the pillow. Yep. That helps build your confidence in yourself, because you say, this day was busy, I had a lot going on, but I finished the thing. Yep. And I did the extra, or whatever the situation might be. So I think more than anything, being able to not go back on what you want for yourself, not go back on your own word, helps build confidence. 100%. Now, obviously, there's a portion of it, Jacob, that is just, are you doing the activities that will lend to success?
Yes.
So if you want to be a great chess player, you need to play so many minutes or hours a day, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
That also is an aspect of it as well. And I think that early on, I wanted to be more. I wanted to be better than what I was around. I wasn't around a lot. Yep. Meaning just being in a small town. Yep. And I didn't know what was out there as far as, major corporations, college football, you name it, higher level academics. I just didn't know. But I was committed to doing the small steps in order to prepare me for what that tomorrow could look like.
I love that. And now let's talk about that tomorrow of you got to college and you even made it to the NFL. What were some of the takeaways there? Because I asked that because we get a lot of college athletes now watching it, or we even in our program, we have a couple people who are in the NFL currently or coming from the NFL, right? And it's always so amazing to me, because being the former strength person, I wanted to work with professional athletes, right? Sure. But now it's like, hey, they're starting to look at what life looks like after college, or what life looks like after the league, right? But before it's after, what were some of the lessons that you took away coming from, hey, small town Alabama to, I'm going to Vanderbilt, I'm playing at a massive school, and then go into the league, which again, almost nobody can say they even just made it to the league, right? Yeah. What'd you learn from going to Vanderbilt and going to the NFL? Yep. What did that teach you, just like life lessons in those seasons?
I think the thing that stood out the most to me was the fact that when you get to the next level, everyone does not want to win the way you want to win.
Oh, come on.
When I first came to college, I genuinely thought that everyone was going to want to work out. Everyone was going to want to prepare at practice as if it was the Super Bowl. Yep. And to be prepared for a Saturday game. Or academically, especially if it's your major, you would care enough about the classes to always be there to, whatever you want to do, have conversations with the professors, do all the extra stuff that shows you care. Yep. When I got to that next level, I realized that everyone doesn't have that. Even though we're all in this same room and we all look alike and we all are, undergrads. That showed me the difference between the mentalities. And this even goes to people who were coaches.
Yeah, come on.
I felt like I saw coaches, and maybe you can align with this as well. I saw coaches who were happy with making a 6-figure salary, but weren't trying to be the best coach they could be in order to have the best young men or maybe young women on that field or on that court. I thought that everyone really would put their best foot forward, their best effort, because now you're at a more competitive tier. So I didn't lose. I was disappointed that people didn't want to win the way I wanted to win. Even though I didn't know how to win as a college individual or athlete or student athlete. But in me was, okay, this isn't good enough. We need to do more. Right? We need to figure out what better good looks like. not to say I was surrounded by losers. I don't want to paint that picture,
Yeah.
but what I'm trying to say is everyone who's in the room doesn't want to win.
Yeah.
And you even see that in business.
I was just going to say this.
You see it in business.
Yep.
Everyone's not willing to do the extra that is needed to seal the deal, to sign the contract, to tweak the thing that will make sales ops run more smooth.
Yep.
Name the situation. But that was a big eye opener for me, which the thing I would say I took away the most, that even ties into professional athletics. Everyone doesn't have the mentality of, I want to get better today.
Yep. And I want everyone to hear that one, because as you're talking, like, it makes me smile so much, because for myself, at every level that I went to, I always wanted Mr. Hustle.
Oh, nice.
I was never the most talented, and a
Yeah.
lot of times when I went to college, I ended up not even starting. I didn't even make the varsity team because I went to NAIA school my freshman year, right?
Yeah.
But I was Mr. Tryhard. And that was the one thing I always knew for me I could control was my effort,
Yeah.
right? But I say that to what you're saying is because that's actually my next question I'm going to ask you is how did you handle that? Because I'll tell you, as someone who has been in sales, has been part of sales organizations, but also who has a company and works with other businesses that are in sales, I actually, hilarious enough, the other night was just talking to ChatGPT for fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you relate to people who are disgusted by mediocrity, who can't even relate to mediocrity, who don't even want to be aligned with any of it? And how do you get the people? And the number one thing I just always say is, like, my girlfriend's like, Jacob, not everyone wants to be you. Not everyone wants that vision. And for me, it's always actually been the hard part. When I got obsessed with fitness,
Yeah.
I couldn't understand why my mom didn't want abs. And she's like, Jacob, I'm 42. I don't need abs, right? And so why I say that is because I'm sharing this for the younger crowd of, like, not everyone's like you. And if you're watching this and you're going to see where you're at, right? The reason that you drove was because of your expectations, your discipline, your grit, you doing the one extra thing, the one extra down, the one extra sprint, making sure that you went all the way through the line.
Yes.
Right? Those kind of things. But for you, when you first got that, because I still am learning, but as you got through that when you're at school and not everybody wants to give as much that you do, or you got to the professional level and not everybody's willing to sacrifice the way you do, how were you personally able to handle that, and also being in the environments of those people and being on a team with those people? When, again, the whole point of being on the team is we're not going to tear each other down because that's our teammates, right? But how do you work with that in the organization of football or even professionalism of not everyone has the same mindset as you?
That's a great question, Jacob. I think that for me, every level you go up, the intensity increases, the stakes are higher. You can meet people who are more like you, if we're describing ourselves as that type of person.
Yep.
And by the way, when I was a 10th grader, I won what my coach called the Full Board Award, which was like, that guy goes all out like a hustle award.
Yeah, I love it.
I can relate to that.
I love it, yeah.
But I think that if I'm honest with myself, if I take a step back from professional experiences but more collegiate, I was a little bothered that people didn't care as much as I cared. Or you would purposefully not do a third of the workout.
Yep.
Or whatever the situation would be. That it just surprised me that people would be that way. So I was a little disappointed that I thought everyone was all in, okay?
Yep.
I then realized it was important for me to align myself and befriend people who I thought didn't have that mentality.
Yep.
So instead of me being disappointed or hurt or mad or sad, whatever negative emotion comes from, I don't feel like I fit in here.
Yeah.
Or with a certain group. Then you find the 1, 2, 3, 4 people who think like you, who are aggressive and want to do more for themselves, who have the mentality of, I'm going to make myself better today.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest thing that helped. I don't know if there was ever an attempt for me to try to change other people.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the college career, if
Yes.
we're talking about even professional sports.
Yep.
And there was less of that from a professional perspective because it was more of a job. There
It's their
was
job.
more of
It's their job. It's their
people can
paycheck.
get
Yeah.
cut, et cetera.
Yep.
But even in the business, if we tie this to med device or any industry, there are some people who are okay with being in the middle of the road. And you have to let those people be okay with that.
Come on.
It's not necessarily your job to force them to be on this end of the spectrum when they're here.
Come on.
Now, if you are leading a team and have the ability to hire people, you hire people who care more about their results than you care about their results.
Come on.
But if you, it's people talk about motivation, people talk about discipline. People say, like, if you're a sales leader, VP of sales, how do you motivate the team? Well, the way you motivate the team is you hire disciplined people.
Yeah.
You don't hire motivated people.
Yep.
So I don't know if I talked in circles there.
No.
But my biggest thought is now as a business professional, it's not that I leave those people alone.
Yep.
But if we are well into our careers and they're still making a conscious decision to be in the middle,
Yep.
that's who they are.
Yep. And I'm so glad you went there, because this is where I wanted to go with it, for the fact of it takes a lot of time from people, especially like myself, who, like, I love to help people. I love to coach, the coaching mentality.
Yeah.
You can't understand why somebody's not there, but you want to help them get up. But you got to understand, not a lot of people always want the help, right? People are able to stay where they're at. But I just wanted to say this. The one thing that you said that I really want people to hear is, instead of trying to change the people who don't want to change, or even just try to fit in with the people that you don't fit in with because you're just different.
Yeah.
Go find 1 or 2 or 3 other people that do.
Yes.
And then that just elevates
Boost your
you.
energy.
Yeah, it elevates everything.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Even, like, let's just talk about football, or let's talk about sales. Instead of looking at them as a negative on the person who's not doing what they need to, you just look at it as, hey, I'm just going to be a bigger strength. And if I need to pick up some of the slack, I will, because I've already put myself there.
Right.
And that's the value you bring to an organization. I just say that because it's one of the common things we say here, because, like, again, why we're on these trips, we've gotten multiple people, 24-year-old just at Medtronic, hired at $160,000, right?
Nice.
And so why we share that is eagles don't fly with pigeons. Right. And why I say that, and I just always make the joke, is a lot of people get offended by that. And I'm like, pigeons don't like being called pigeons. But the reason I share that is, when you want to go to the next level, you're not worried about what everybody else is saying. You just go be what you are, and what you're saying right there. And I just want everyone to hear is, hey, instead of going and trying to fit in with the crowd and all the stuff, to be exceptional. Like Hermosi, they always talk about it. You are the exception, right? Chris Williams talks about it. You are the exceptions if you want to be exceptional. And so you can't be normal. You can't be average. And that's what takes you to the next level, right? And I just wanted to state that, because I already knew you were going there, because it shows where you're at. Why focus on the negative? Why focus on the things you can't change? How about you just go focus on the things you can change and get around other people who are going to try to lift you up, going to make you better.
Right.
And then you just go together. And even in the organization, like you said, instead of trying to be like, hey, how do I motivate unmotivated people? First off, if you're in the hiring, just get people that are motivated. And the other thing I just want to state that is, when you said that, I just thought about one time I was on a trip with my CEO when I was at Innovis, and I forgot something.
Sure.
And I'll just never forget. I got on. I ended up taking care of it without him really knowing it. Like, I figured it all out. And then we got on the bus to go back to where we were going. And he looked at me, and I just looked at him, like, so mad at myself. And I was like, so aren't you going to rip me? And he's like, no, mate, you're already doing it 10 times harder than I ever could. And he just smiled at me. And I just say that because, like, what you're saying is, like, go get the people who care more about their performance and how they can help the organization, rather than how am I going to try to motivate this person to want to have the vision of being successful, to have the vision of winning a national championship, to have a vision of being a top sales rep, right?
Sure,
so I absolutely love that. Now, let's actually talk about your transition into the industry of pharmaceuticals and medical devices. So walk us through that. So you played professional sports, and then we made a transition. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so after I got cut the last time from the Jags, I decided to go into a career. I didn't know what career I really wanted to be in. And this is really interesting. I think a lot of things happen that were supposed to happen in my life. So I remember being in Florida and then going back to Nashville, Tennessee. My sister, who actually is in med device as well, she's been with McKesson for over a decade, and kills it like every year. I was actually like laying on her couch and trying to figure out what my next steps. So a few things that were going on. I knew of a guy who played football at Vanderbilt, who was in pharmaceuticals. So I had some conversations with him.
Yep.
And tried to understand what he was doing, how he did it. Do you like it? What's good about it? What's not so good about it? I actually went to a career fair, something I probably should have done as an undergrad or grad. But I went to a career fair and met a few different companies, and actually came somewhat close to considering working with the FBI, which is a long story. It's too long for our time here in this meeting. But I ultimately said no to moving to Memphis and maybe starting a career in the FBI, because I think the closest office at that point was not in Nashville, it was in Memphis.
Okay.
I didn't want to have a job where I thought my life could be in danger, so I figured, let me go down the road of pharma. So I started out in pharmaceuticals. I got advice from a friend of mine who was on the football team with me at Vanderbilt, who was in pharma. My path to pharma was not easy. At that career fair, I met a gentleman who worked for a specific company, won't say his name, won't say the company, and he told me, he took my resume and he checked it, and he told me to call him. And I said, yes, sir. Had his business card. And I called that guy for 6 months. I called him, the first month probably every week, and maybe the first 2 months. In month 3, maybe 3 times that month. In month 4, maybe twice a month. And going into 6 months, I leave my final message and I say, Mr. So-and-so, I'm only calling you because you told me to call you. You checked my resume. You thought I'd be someone who would be, could maybe go down the road to being in pharmaceuticals. I'm not calling again. Thank you for your help, but it's been 6 months.
Yeah.
So he calls me back 2 weeks later and lets me know that, a company's going to be interviewing in my neck of the woods, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up getting into pharma really only because I was gritty enough to bother someone for half a year. And I don't know if that's gritty. That might be kind of being a stalker.
Hey, you didn't go to jail, baby. Here we go.
I didn't. So also, there were people who I knew, who I respected and appreciated, who were attorneys, et cetera.
Yep.
And I practiced interviewing, even though I didn't know anything about the business. And they didn't really know a ton about pharma, but they were business professionals.
100%.
So I wanted to come prepared, and it worked out. So I ended up being in pharmaceuticals with 2 different companies for a total of just over 5 years.
Yep.
And this is a kind of a funny story. I will never forget the day where I realized that I wanted more. Okay, so I had a lunch meeting scheduled, and I'm on time, but 45 minutes have gone by. They clearly see I'm waiting. Right, I've already spoken to the person at the front desk, waiting on the surgeon, et cetera. And I see this guy walk in with green scrubs on. It's August. It's blazing hot. Like, I'm in a suit and tie like I am now.
Yep.
I'm waiting to see the customer. He walks right in, hugs the gatekeeper. Then he goes in the back, opens up the door, and the person I'm supposed to have met 45 minutes ago gives him a big hug on the neck, and I'm thinking, his job is better than mine. So that day, I went to Monster.com. I'm sure it's not even a thing anymore. Went to Monster.com and submitted my resume. And about 2 weeks later, I received a phone call from a recruiter out of Ohio who described the job. He sent a video describing what the job is, what the work would be.
Yep.
Sales associate position. I'm watching this video and I'm thinking, there's no way they're going to hire me for this. So it was a neuromodulation job. So they're putting needles, right, in the back.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, yeah, there's no way. Like, this is too serious. So I didn't understand the business. Fast forward, I become a sales associate at Boston Scientific in neuromod.
Yep.
And I took that job so seriously. I actually took a slight pay cut.
Yep.
To leave pharma to go to the med device opportunity.
As a sales associate.
As a sales
I just always want to put that out there because people will be like, and it's like the associates are making just a little less than the reps.
So I left the rep life of a pharmaceutical rep to become a sales associate in med device. I knew I was going to work hard and get paid less.
Yep.
But I knew the long-term road, the runway was much, much better.
Yep.
And what happened was, after being in the business for about a year, people started reaching out to me for work. They knew that I was a pharmaceutical rep that had a lot of cardiovascular experiences, sold cardiovascular drugs. Fast forward, a year later, I have a company reaching out to me to hire me as a full-fledged rep.
Yep.
Double the money I was making as a sales associate.
Yep.
And that wouldn't have happened quite as fast in pharma. And that's really how I got my start, was seeing someone have access that I couldn't have because they had on scrubs and I was wearing a suit.
Yep.
That changed me and made me want to do more for myself.
I love that. And I just want to touch base on that real quick, is you question it. Instead of, like, most people will just sit there and they'll be like, well, what the heck, this guy, and go into the negative.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what? I could do that. I could have an opportunity. It made you go be curious. But one thing I want to say during that story that you said that I think is just huge is you continue to prep. You continue to work with people to interview. You continue to talk to people before you got your job in pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
And you were persistent. You had grit. And you also, every time, because I can already tell with the messages, you weren't pushy. You weren't like, you didn't get passive aggressive, that he hadn't called you back after 3 months and be like, what's wrong with you? Or you did this.
Yeah.
You just continuously showed up, just put your best foot forward. And then you said, hey, after 6 months, you actually gave the, I'm not going to call you back. And then somehow 2 weeks later, it comes in and he calls back, right? And your persistence paid off. But I also just want to always say, one of the things we always tell people is, you don't got to get ready if you stay ready. I always think about we work, like I said, with some professional athletes. If they're going in between right now, NFL season, like we were talking to guys and they're like, hey, I don't know which team's going to pick me up right now. I'm in free agency. We're going to just see what happens. It goes back to the whole thing. They're not just sitting on the couch watching TV. Like, they're still training. They're still doing all the stuff they need to. So when they get that call and they get the one opportunity, are they going to show up in there? Are they going to make the most of it? Right. And I just want to put that out there, because, like, most people will always say, oh, luck, right? Yeah. But you said it back where it's like, hey, if you want to be really good at chest, you're probably doing a lot of chest, right? It's the same thing here. You want to get into an industry and you want to be a professional. Even though you weren't with the reps, you were putting yourself around a lot of professionals, right? And just learning from them, taking interview tips, learning probably about how they ran their business, just learning all different ends that are going to come in and form James to then go put yourself as a strong candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I've learned is you can learn from anyone. Yeah. And I think that is a trait that is underused. Seriously, I didn't even know how to dress for an interview. I knew I couldn't come in jeans and a t-shirt, but I didn't know that you wear a certain type of suit for a certain type of interview. I mean, look, we're just kind of hanging out here, and I'm kind of, I probably wouldn't wear this for an interview.
But you come from the VP life, man. We get it, man.
Wasn't buying custom suits back then, but I really started from the ground up. Yes, because I wanted to be good. Yes, I wanted to be good at business. I wanted to be good as an athlete. So I would ask the guys who were, 2 or 3 years older than me, okay, if it's a football example, why did you check to that call when that motion happened there? Like, help me understand. Because I knew at some point I was going to be the person that was front and center, or the lights were going to be on, and you need to make sure you not have errors. So that's my mentality on that. Well,
and I just want to say this because I think it's super interesting with the more and more successful businessmen, sales reps, entrepreneurs that I meet. It's that they're the most curious and the most coachable. Right? With what you just said is like, hey, we can learn from everybody. I always tell our team this, like, you can learn from every single person, and that might even just be learning on what not to do. Sure. Right? And so I think that's just something I want to say, because with a lot of people coming up and being in the sales world, we can all sometimes maybe feel like we know everything, or we have the ego of being able to just bull rush our way into something, which you need the confidence, you need that persistence, but I think also just being able to, we always talk about is a lot of people will go hit their head against the wall 10 times when the door is right there, and you could just step left 2 feet and walk through the open doorway, right? And I think just with what you just said, I think is such a great point of who are we learning from? And even though it may not be the exact quote unquote person that you thought, or avatar that we thought we were talking to, you being with business people is setting you up to go into the world of business. Absolutely. Now, I also want to just say is you were willing to take a shot, and you bet on you to take a little cut to then go be a sales associate, right? And for most people, they can't do it because of the title, the ego, whatever it is. And you were like, nah, I'm willing. What gave you the confidence to be like, I'm willing to take a cut and the title demotion, right, of
Yeah.
a full line sales rep to I'm going to Medtronic, or sorry, I'm going to a medical device company, as an associate. Was that an easy choice for you? Did that just like make sense, or did you have some wrestling?
Yeah, so it's funny, I haven't really talked about this in a long time, so I'm remembering things I hadn't thought about in a while. I remember going to dinner that night, which was almost like a celebration dinner, and I wasn't fully happy because I was singing, "Oh, it's less money, it's less money," and it wasn't a ton less money, but when you think I'm going to do more, I'm going to do better, you think compensation comes along with it.
Yes.
And sometimes it's an experience that comes along with it, and then 365 days later, I double what I had made, right? So I wasn't totally happy at first, right? I think the thing that is the biggest answer here is I was motivated because I saw what access looked like and I didn't have it in that customer relationship.
Yes.
That's access I don't have. So I'm willing to go through discomfort. Maybe it was financial for a certain amount of time. Maybe I'm at the OR at 6 a.m. with a OR bag with 3 of everything prepared for whatever the case is going to be like. Maybe I go through that, but I know I want to be able to have access, because usually when I can meet someone and have a conversation with someone, I can get them to align with James Watkins. And whatever company I'm working for, in this case it was Boston Scientific, I can get them to align to Boston Scientific's vision through the voice and the eyes of James Watkins.
I love that. And I'm so excited that you just talk about, being able to, even though you were dissatisfied, but 365, and then you doubled where you're at, right? I just say that because most people get so caught up on the number, the figure, whatever it is. And a lot of times what I always tell people is like, sometimes people aren't willing to take a step back, but it's because they're looking 3 inches in front of their face instead of being like, hey, what's the bigger goal? And I just say this because the most common thing I hear is like, well, Jacob, I might not do that for 5 years or 10 years or 15, or that's how they think. A lot of younger kids are like, well, Jacob, I'm going to make this career. And I'm like, when's the last time you did anything for 5 years?
Right.
Probably never, right? And so the reason I'm just saying that is like, I think it's one thing I can already see from your story is you just come in, and I always just tell people, it's like, you just closed your eyes for 12 months. You just came in and you worked. You did the job. You did everything you needed to. And because you were just you, and you fell in love with the process of just becoming the best version of you as a sales associate, somehow somebody else saw your value and were like, we'll double that.
You're exactly right. So going a few years past, I am in my 3rd year of being a rep. The first 2 years I had the same territory, but the first 2 years I had a territory that severely underperformed, and the competition was, killing it as far as market share, you name it. So no one wanted that geography, and it was a geography that was available for me. What people have to do, and what I learned probably through my upbringing, was do the work even when you don't feel like it. Do the work even when you don't see the result. And I would be at work Monday through Friday. I had a little Toyota that I would put at times 1,000 miles a week on. And my job was to make sure, I get it, your contract is with another company, but you're going to know who I am. You're going to see me every Wednesday. For years. Now, in year 3, there happened to be a crack in the door that I really burst through, only because all the customers who were contractually aligned with other people, as soon as something changed contractually that I had nothing to do with, they thought, well, we have a great rep who's consistently doing his job and this and that. What about that company? Do they sell these things? Oh, yeah, they do. Well, you know what? He has no business with us, and he's more diligent and is more present than the rep who has 75% market share. So it took me 24 months of, doing the work, planting seeds, when an opportunity that I didn't create presented itself, that finally I burst through. And that year, I'm the #1 rep in the company. I go to P Club, and people who never knew who I was all of a sudden I was like, who's James Watkins? Like,
Yep.
how is this area? This is like the bottom 5% of the company every year. How's it now at the top, et cetera, so on and so forth.
Yep.
And leadership noticed me, and they realized it was all me. Now, obviously, situations worked out on my behalf,
Of
but
course.
no one knew who I was for 2 years, for the most part.
100%.
But when I started winning and started getting recognition, how are you doing this? Do you have any clinical support? No, it's just me. I'm just out here and, covering an area that's 3 states and 2 time zones, and I'm putting 1,000 miles a week on my car,
Yep.
and a lot of Marriott points. Like, that was the effort that it took to turn around a situation. You have to work. You just have to. Even when things don't look right, you still have to do the same activities and be disciplined and not be the person who leaves Thursday at 2 p.m. and then leaves Friday at 11:50. It doesn't work.
Can you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, can you stick to the commitment even though the feelings have left? The
Yeah.
commitment. Everyone, when you got the job in the first 3 months, it's great because you got
Fired
it
up.
right. But what about month 15?
Yeah.
When it's another late night, another not where you want it to be. But I just love just a couple things I want to touch on is going back to Dad following you in the Chevy truck of
Yeah,
you're
Chevy
doing,
S10 blue.
you're doing your thing when you didn't always feel like it. But what that taught you is, hey, I said I was going to do this. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
Right. And I always say this is what you're even talking about here is it's just doing the work. Like I remember listening to a podcast when I first got into medical device sales. I listened to everybody and I would listen to just all sales podcast. And I remember a podcast and they said, usually it's usually months 18 to 24 that you will actually see any growth from what you've done in a territory. But they say why most reps actually never see that growth is because they leave at month 20. 24, right? And it takes that time. But I want to really focus on this because I'm huge on this. And it's one thing that I just always try to teach people is you were with those companies, but you were James and you were the rep. And when they thought of the opportunities, they thought of you.
Yeah.
Not just the company that you represented. And I think that's the thing that most people miss is you are the brand.
Absolutely.
You are the company. What the biggest thing I knew when you start winning is when they say, hey, they're not asking for Boston Scientific. They're like, no, James. Hey,
Right.
what's James got? Like
Yeah.
they think of you and you've made that personal relationship and you made them feel seen. That's number one.
Yeah.
But number two, I do want to just say this as you're like, hey, contractual and all this stuff. But it's all this. Something funny about how the hard workers always get lucky, right? It's if you didn't do all of that, the contracts could have still changed. And if you hadn't been doing what you had been doing for the last 24 months, they're not calling and they're not making that change.
Absolutely.
Right. And I really want to focus on that because so many people will always, especially because you made it to P Club, right?
Yeah.
You make it to P Club, they're like, well, who's this guy? What did he do? How did he get lucky? And it's like they didn't see the 24 months of putting 1,000 miles on the car, the late nights, the Marriotts, the driving at midnight to where you need to go to, the early morning calls. And no, you didn't have to blast it and let everybody know. You just put your head down and you did the work. You did the thing. And I think that's one thing that I really admire. Like the stories of all the top people that I meet that have come from not getting just born into that or making the change from a C-suite of one company to the next. And it's I didn't know what my timeline was. I actually didn't even have a timeline. I just worked.
Yes.
And then you got it. And so, okay, so you hit P Club. Then how did that kind of change your career? And what I mean by that is go from, hey, you're a sales associate. Nobody really knows who you are. You're just putting in the time to, then you become a rep. And now everyone knows who James is.
Yeah, I think for me, some of the habits that I started acquiring when I saw the sales momentum, they stuck with me. So I was the type of person that, and listen, I had a manager that allowed for me to do this, but I would call my manager at 6 a.m. Because I realized that if I try to call this individual in the middle of the day or toward the end of the day, there were maybe 10 other people that needed conversation and contracts and all that stuff. So I realized that, okay, I'm an early riser. He was an early riser. Let's talk about our business, what's important today, very early. Great trait to have, especially I think in med device.
Yes.
You're someone who just really can be up before the sun is up. For me, I had goals I had jotted down. Some were ranking, some were financial. What I realized was even when I hit those things, I had a greater desire to make myself better than achieve those specific goals.
Yeah.
So I ended up transitioning from Boston Scientific as an associate to Abbott Vascular for less than 6 years, came back to Boston Scientific. My second run at Boston Scientific was majorly about me gaining different experiences.
Yes.
And I was very purposeful about that because the people who I respected the most, the people who were be considered, mentors, et cetera, they all had a really heterogeneous background.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to be someone who was good at just one portion of business, whether it's cardiovascular or OBGYN, whatever you're doing as far as as a sales rep, whatever you're selling.
Yep.
Boston Scientific is, and at the time was, a fairly big company. So why can't I have an experience in marketing? Why can't I have an experience in this type of sales leadership or this type of working in corporate accounts, et cetera?
Yep.
That was my desire. I didn't want to be disqualified for a higher level C-suite type, VP type, executive type interview because, James has only done one thing, or James has only done these 2 or 3 things.
Yes.
So my desire over the next, call it maybe less than a decade, was let me learn as much as I can learn about different facets of the company. Let me meet different people that I might never work for, but I can understand more of what they do because I have quarterly calls with them and I understand how they do their job and why it's important for regulatory to do A, B, and C before a product comes out, things like that.
Well, and I just want to touch on that, is that's why you did make it to where you were and where you're at now, is because a couple of things. Number one, intentionality.
Yeah.
Being intentional. You knew you didn't want to just be like, hey, I'm here for 20 years at the same division, same company, which again, nothing wrong with. It's just, hey, you're like, hey,
that's how I'm built.
Yeah, you're like, hey, I want to try different things. I want to go. Number two, I always want to make sure that we still talk about this. Everyone thinks you just network once you get in the industry. You're networking more once you're in the industry and you're in that, and even for you, 2 things. A is you never know where this world takes you.
Correct.
But number 2, what you just said was, how do I understand what somebody else does so I better understand how this whole system works? And then you can actually speak to that. And then when you get in those opportunities, you already have a contact if you need to learn a little bit more about that.
Absolutely.
To reach out to. And they already like James. And I just want to touch on that because what I see a lot of times is like reps who just want to be reps or managers. They just do one thing. They're like, this is my lane.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I don't need to talk to anybody else. I don't need any more friends. But what I notice with like the people who continuously climb in all these organizations, they're friends with everybody and they know everybody. And everybody knows them and they're just there to learn, right? And it's also, I just want to touch on that is there's so many people who take, hey, I'm just called, like I'll never forget one of the times there was a rep who called me. They don't say hi. They don't ask how your day is going. They don't ask anything. They're just like, hey, I need this. And that was it all the time. And then a lot of times, like even for me, I laugh because it's like we have our company now in the podcast and they would be like, just tell me everything you're doing and I just need this. And I'm like, I don't really know you, so I'm not going to, if we would have asked how my day was going, maybe this would have changed a little different. But I share that because for you're able to meet those people because you actually took a genuine interest in the person, but also the work that they were doing. Because not just because of, this is only going to help me, because you were truly curious of what they did because it all makes you a better candidate, a better rep, a better manager, better marketer, all the above.
Yeah, one thing, what you just said was gold there, Jacob. And I think that as we grow in our careers, whether you're entry level or mid management, you name it, you cannot get too busy to continue working on yourself. And oftentimes that's through other people. So for me, I saw the importance of having touch points with people who were doing things that were totally not related to what I was doing. I think the med device industry would be so much better if every sales rep who feels like they're the reason the lights are on, like all the confidence and all the swagger that a sales rep should have, spend 2 years in marketing.
Come on.
Whether it's upstream, downstream, you name it. Just spend 2 years in marketing and you'll see how sales is vital. It is important. It is the future. But marketing is important. What R&D does is important. Making sure finance has the numbers right, in essence.
Yes.
That's super important.
Yep.
Like all these are spokes on a wheel, and they will become better salespeople, right? If they go back into the field. So for me, I made it a point, especially in that phase of my career where I was with Boston Scientific for the bulk of that time. I wanted to know what other people were doing. I want to understand it. I didn't want anything from you. Like I wasn't asking for a job. Hey, let's be friends for 3 quarters, and then at the end of Q4, can I interview for this job that I heard is coming? It wasn't that. It was just, hey, I know you're busy. This is what I do. This is what's going on. I just want to learn more about Can we have 30 minutes a quarter when we talk about this? And I did it with people who were in positions of power, I guess, to make decisions. They might not have been like VP level people, but they were still directors and such, managers, et cetera. That helped me network and know what was going on.
Yes.
And then they would introduce things to me and share with me, hey, this is going on, this is going to happen, this is good news for this group, this might not be so much good news for this group. Especially if they're a veteran within the company, not 2 or 3 years in, but 17 years in. That usually the information they have is pretty good, and it helps you navigate what you want to do as a next step because you have more information and you're a known entity. And I'm guilty of it even myself. Sometimes work gets so busy, you stop doing that. And the work you did to get into the industry, are you doing the same work to figure out what your next steps are in the industry?
I love that. And the thing that people just miss is also the work sometimes just changes, right? And you have to change with the work. And what I mean by that is on our flight over here, even I was thinking about, what got me to break into the industry and then got me to be successful and to like where we're at now. It's like it all changes, but it's still, you got to go. But do I take the time to step back? And I think this is the thing I love about the podcast when I get to come talk to you is I get to learn. And this is just a selfish time for me of being like, wow, like, did you see what James did there? James is really amazing here, because I think what all top performers do is they all have, success leaves clues. And I love being able to it, but I love seeing everybody's different stories of what they're doing to get them to have success. But a couple things you said I want to just touch on is, number one, what happens when you go and talk to people that are in those different roles. Number one, why they will actually take a time, 30 minutes a quarter, because they don't have a lot of other people doing that. Maybe they're too timid to reach out, they're too scared, or when they have done it, they haven't come prepared, or they didn't write questions that actually showed that they were switched on. They were just kind of coming off. That's number one. But number two, I think when you're able to go and then just start learning, you're just truly curious. You're just trying to learn. They see that. And then again, your name starts getting tossed around when you're not there in a positive manner.
Correct.
And then the last thing I just want to always say is like what you just said is like when you were able to talk to the person who's been in for 17 years compared to even a year, this is what we always talk about is you learn how to play the game, right? And sometimes you're getting intel to the game of like, hey, maybe this is going to happen in the next 2 years, then this isn't. Maybe I would push you this way. You start seeing those things, and that's why having those relationships is massive. But I do want to just touch on, you said marketing. And it's so funny to me how many, like in medical device sales and any sales organization, usually it is sales fights with marketing and marketing fights with sales because they all feel like they're missing the mark on what it is, right? But then what's hilarious is all of my friends that I know that have become vice presidents and VPs and all those tops, they've done both. And then what they've usually done is they've actually gone into from the sales role into the marketing back into the sales because the marketing actually helped them understand everything so much more. I want to just put this out there for all the salespeople is you actually underestimate the power of what marketing has and where marketing, even when I was working on deals, you learned out that even though the sales was the company or the sales was the division generating all the revenue, they're not the ones signing the check to bring in all the new stuff that's going to help the company. It's usually the marketing ones with the budget. And so it's super interesting for me to learn that world. But where I want to kind of go with this is we're going to talk about your time in the marketing world, but I want to go, what was it like from going from that sales rep, the sales associate sales rep, to you came back and you're at Boston and you're a regional sales manager, you're that middle management. What was kind of the transition there?
It was something I really wanted to do. I feel like just by me listening to people in med device, they loathe middle management. I don't want to lead people. Like you have some people who say things like that. For me, I'm someone, was back then and still am, I'm I would be more uncomfortable doing the same thing for years and years and years, even if I get really good at it, versus being uncomfortable having to learn something different that's totally new to me. So in that chunk of time, obviously I just had almost 3 years with Medtronic, but before that, being with Boston Scientific for just over a decade in totality, I was a part of neuromodulation, surgical endoscopy. I was a part of Watchman marketing, interventional cardiology. When I was at Boston Scientific, in order to lead a team, especially a sales team, you had to go through leadership development training. And at the time, they called it Momentum. I'm not sure if they call it Momentum anymore. And I had asked to be a part of it a couple of times and was told no. Right? There's so many slots you can have per year for the country.
Yep.
So for me, it was, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to prove to, nameless individuals that now that I'm in the program, which was, I don't know, maybe 6 or 9 months long, that I was good enough I should have been there.
Yep.
And in my mind, I should have been there a year or two earlier than what I was.
Yep, I got you.
And not only am I in this room now of about 15 people, it's a mix of people with interventional cardiology backgrounds or peripheral backgrounds, I'm going to be one of the best ones. So when I finished that training, which was less than a year long, I finished 3rd out of 15, and I received a Ready to Lead Now rating. Okay,
I love it.
So I came into that form of leadership with, I need to prove people I'm worthy of being nominated and I'm good enough to lead.
Yep.
All right. So maybe that's the athlete in me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right. So when I ended up getting my opportunity to actually lead a team, I had interviews for opportunities that didn't go my way. Okay. But someone saw something in me, a gentleman named Gavin Phillips, saw something in me that said, I'm going to help you. And he helped me. He opened up doors for me. He had me meet people. And I ended up going, he was leading a portion of business in urology. He ended up having me meet people who were in endoscopy. And they had a need for leadership in the area where I lived. So I prepped for the interview, came in guns a-blazing, ended up getting the job. I think that for me, I realized that it wasn't so much of now, okay, I have something to prove, I finally got to that spot. It was really, I've had awards as an individual contributor. How can I help people win? Yeah. Now, if I help people win, maybe my team wins, right?
Yep.
But I grew into the kind of person that was really trying to foster success for those 7 or 10 people who reported to me and were competing against other regions within the country. Everything that people say about people leadership is true. Like we could talk for 40 minutes about that.
Yeah, that's its own.
I was in a situation where you're having to manage people out, you're having to fill vacancies and all these things. It is true. It's a lot of work. But it's one of the most important jobs within the company because those are the people you are leading that are customer facing. They're front line. So for me, Jacob, I had to get off my high horse of told you I was good enough to transition to, okay, we have needs here. I know what good looks like. Let me make sure my people are set up to have the tools and the resources to do the good.
I think that's amazing. And I love that because a couple things you said. Number one is there's so many reps that I talk to and, we'll get the social on the internet. The internet's a funny place, but it'll be like, well, I've done the same thing for 15 years. So you must suck because and it's interesting watching that, right? Because that's just the mentality. And again, that's great. I love that they're an expert for 15 years in what they do. But I think the thing that's super interesting is I've always been the same way with you is like for me, I never needed to stay at a place for a bunch of time because I'm like, well, like for example, when I went to Medtronic and I took the lowest performing to top 10, I was like, well, why do I need to do it again and again and again? And because other reps will be like, well, you got to do it for at least 6 years before you can even say it. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense to me, right? Like you might have to say it for 6 years, right? But and the reason I say that, it's like, that's like, well, you only played in the NFL for 2 years, right? It's like, You played in the NFL for 2 years, man.
Right.
Like most people can't even make it to the NFL. You don't need you don't have to go play there for a decade to say that you played in the NFL and that you were in the NFL, right? And I think that's something that I think is super interesting from like yours is the very high performers I talk to are like, they don't think of where they have to stay for years on years and years. They're like, what can I do to continue to elevate to the next level?
Yeah.
And I think, and again, I do want to just say that doesn't mean you just, like, you can stay at a place and you're learning 2, 3, 5, 10 years during that. But it's just interesting to me of there's two different ways. And I've seen the people who've done the other ways. We just have the conversation of like, hey, it took me way longer. And they usually tell me, man, I should have jumped after about 3 years because I stayed in a place for 4 or 5 years too long.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's interesting. Now, the other thing I want to
make a point?
Yeah, go for it.
I think, Jacob, it's very easy to become good at something and stay in that lane.
Yes.
Especially if you understand your universe, you know what's going to come and what's not going to come. You might have a great leader that you want to continue to stay coupled with. Who knows? But I really honestly believe, at least for me, and everyone's not wired this way, you should want to learn new skills and do different things because it's going to make you a better person. If you want to come back to that later on, 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years later, then you can go back to it and you probably are a better person with the experiences you've had in between. That is the discomfort that comes from stretching yourself that I think everyone needs, really. Not even in med device field.
I was just going to say, in life, what you just said, though, like, that's what makes you the 1% that gets you there is because we have these conversations is, like, I say the same thing, like, when you're from small town Alabama, you can always go back, right? But most people never actually even leave.
Correct.
Because they're just like, hey, this is what I know, or I heard Florida's horrible, right? Like they heard from a cousin that went there one time, right? And so it's like, you just go figure it out. And like you said, is like one thing that's always been in my mind as well is like to just share for everyone is for you all to, you can always go back. Or everyone thinks if you left Boston Scientific, you can never go back.
Right.
But if you did a really good job and you left on really good terms and they might be begging you to come back. And if you're a better candidate for the next thing that they're looking for, it just can make you an even better candidate for the next opportunity. Right. So I love that you said that. I also want to just touch base on the point that you made earlier about leadership is a lot of times what people don't understand is like why it's extremely hard why most people don't want to do middle management is because it's the biggest reflection of yourself. It's the biggest reflection of it's easy. And when I say easy, it's still hard to be a successful rep, but it's easy for you to get up at 4 a.m. and just do the thing. It's easy for you to be like, hey, I'm just going to work because you're wired that way. But what I've learned is going back to when you don't have people always on that, a lot of times, being with those reps, it's going to be out where's the deficiency as me at this current moment that I need to get better at. And that's what I've learned even just leading an organization. I'm like, wait, you guys don't think about just this 24/7 all the time, right? And it's like being able to have that piece. And then I think the most interesting part I've had to learn as like being a manager or like running a company is every single person is wired differently and motivated by different things. And so what we want to do is like this more of like everyone should just do this on 7 individuals on the team.
Right.
What makes each one tick? And there's different talks to each one. So I just love that where you went with that because most people don't understand about middle management. That's why it's so hard because whether you're a management or you're even the CEO of a company, like it's your people facing now. Correct. And you were as a rep with like accounts, but now it's like you have to get your people in a place and find out what's going on in their life, but what skills are they lacking, but also give them the skills without making them feel bad and making them built up to where they want to come and they see the leader. And I just want to share this one last thing and would love your point on it because you did it. As I think so many times, especially in the corporate world, is leaders get told as the title. And I think about this all the time is there's a picture that always says is like when there's a leader, it's having people grab a rope and they start pulling and the leader's pointing. But what the real leader does is they go grab the front of the rope. Right. And I think that's a really interesting thing that I've been learning even in this season of life is the leadership parts. Actually being a rep or going and making sales or doing whatever, that's actually way easier than being like, okay, now I'm responsible for everybody else. And I actually have to not only make myself better, but I need to make them better.
Absolutely.
In every aspect.
Yeah, you make a great comment there. I think as you were talking, I think about being a parent And you can have children with different personalities.
Yeah.
The great parent can take multiple personalities with different motivations and still get them to do the thing.
Yeah.
Right? It could be as simple as cleaning the room, or if you were in a sales rep example and you're in middle management, it could get them to achieve plan. Or they're, it's the middle of the quarter and they're nowhere near, they're trending to be 82%, but you get them to see the need to rally to get to 97.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Even though they fell short by 3 percentage points, it showed them that they can do the thing, and you help inspire them. That is the part that is not easy, is understanding you have different personalities, but you still need to get a result. Is your verbal judo, your art of persuasion, in being authentic and genuine, you still have to persuade people to do the task, do the goal. Like that's the hard part.
Yeah.
I think that we could talk about that.
Yeah,
but one thing I'll say that I think I experienced a good amount in my time with Medtronic was whatever it is about you that is how you move and how you lead. Like what's your ethos, your aura? You should continue having that. Just because you get a title, whether it's a region manager or a director or a senior VP, whatever, that shouldn't change because that's who you are. I'm not saying don't get better and learn new skills, but one thing I always told the people who reported to me was, I'm the type of person that will be in the field working with you and your teams.
Come on.
And it can be the last or one of the last days in a quarter, I'm getting on a plane and we're going to go see the customer if there is a need, if there's a need for a face-to-face, if there's a deal we need to close. I remember one time I was at the Jacksonville airport about to go through TSA pre-check, and I took a 360 video and shared, hey, this is where I'm at. I know the quarter's coming to an end, but let's push, like a conversation, something like that. But I said, listen, if I'm going to do this, if I'm getting on the plane, you can go into the hospital.
Yep.
Right? That is something that you whatever makes you still have to deliver that.
Come on.
Regardless of where you are in your career, whatever title you have or don't have, because that kind of becomes your brand.
Yep.
And I think from a sales perspective, people see the genuineness if you consistently be that way.
Yep. And the thing I'm really hearing, because this is what I love, and I think this is what actually gets missed a lot of times in the corporation world, is it's more getting told in the middle management world of Excel sheets, hiring, what are you doing behind the desk?
Yeah.
Instead of, are you actually out in the field with your people?
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive piece that goes into the success, because as somebody who witnessed that as like being a rep and going to it, like always got told what to do, but never got shown what to do.
Right.
Never had somebody actually come out and be like, hey, let's actually go together and let me show you how to work on this that you're challenged with. And I think that just goes, and again, I think the biggest buy-in is going back to, that's you pulling on the rope with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you just said, it made me think about in college, I had a coach that a good portion of my college, I was being taught defenses. I was being taught plays. Be lined up the right way at this time, etc. Toward the end of my college career, I had a coach that taught me the play, but also taught me the techniques, why your feet should do this, this, or this, where your eyes should be at when this happens. Those are the finer points that help you become a faster player, right? Not necessarily a 40-time faster, but within the play, you are faster.
Yep.
The same thing happens when people do more than what they have to do, which is the sales sheets that show the rankings and the reports that show the trends. That's important. But when you take the time to connect, for the most part, salespeople are people who need to connect with other people.
Yes.
When you take the time to connect with the people you work with and work around, there's an energy there that it's a force multiplier.
Yeah.
It's absolutely necessary and needed, and they know that you care more. And if you're with a customer and you're way out in, Clovis, New Mexico or Chattanooga, Tennessee, when you shake their hands and they say, you know what, I haven't had a VP come in this territory in 7 years, in 5 years. Like, that matters.
Yep.
So the human element will always be important.
Yes.
It's vital to be yourself, to be real, to be authentic.
Yep.
But continue to be the human that is needed to carry the conversations versus just the email asking for the thing.
100%. And that's so good, because again, I just had this conversation with a buddy. Is like, I hear all the time, like, relationship selling is dead, right? Like, oh, just having relationships, because you'll hear, right, the challenger sale or the star method, and like, those are great, right? But if, like, you just showing up, and like they said, a VP hasn't been here in 7 years, what you just said is, you matter.
Yeah.
You matter to me, and I will travel because you matter to me. Yeah. Right. And so I just think that's such a massive deal. Now, I have to ask, since we're new to medical device sales and we help people break in, you were the regional sales manager. You are the person hiring these people.
Yeah.
What did you look for in people that are trying to
Yeah.
be reps in the industry? And what did you notice, maybe what you looked for, but what you noticed maybe early on from the reps that were successful to maybe the ones that maybe struggled? Were there any key characteristics that helped those other ones stand out?
Yeah. So for me, I think those initial interviews are really important, like how they present themselves. I was not overly concerned with someone's lack of experience.
Yep.
If they came from a similar field or similar background, it wasn't something that was totally way off base, I was open to hearing their story and understanding why they were, sitting in front of me or maybe on a Zoom or Teams meeting. But how they present, how they showed up, how they followed up, the questions they asked me, how they answered questions in the interview process, to me, that is very important, because that is who you will be in front of the customer for the most part.
Yep.
That's who you are in front of the customer. That's you representing Medtronic, Abbott, Boston Scientific, whoever. Yep. I think once I made a decision on hiring someone, one of the things that I probably had as a reason was what I call range. Can they do different things? Mm-hmm. Now, the job that I might be hiring for could be very specific, right? But does this person have the capacity and the ability to do more in the future? Did they juggle a lot in past roles? I guess, or current roles if they don't work for the company I work for.
Yep.
Could I see Jacob working in Seattle? Does he have the ability to work in Maine, Miami, Lubbock, Texas? Like, you name it.
Yep.
I like range, because the work that sales reps and med device do, there's so many problems. There's 98 problems. And you have to have the range to figure things out. Yep. And there's a lot of times there's more no's and yeses. Yep. So to me, people who have range usually set themselves up for success more so. I think once they get into the job. Yep. And I've hired someone, right? Once they're into the job, the things that I notice that makes me think, okay, I hired the right person. Are they a mayor? And what I mean by that is, I'm not someone who has to hire an extroverted personality. I think by nature I'm an introverted person, but I realize in sales you're not going to make money unless you initiate. Let me open my mouth. Yep. But I want someone who owns their universe. And I think one of the reasons I had success early on as an individual contributor was I said, okay, this is my job. It's not doing that well, meaning the territory. It's on me to make it happen. Yep. So I want someone who, when they go to a hospital, people say hi to them before they say hi to that person, which makes me know that they've been there a million times. They're not just telling you that they were there. Right. Yeah. Right. And so I'm not someone who's going to, I'm sure there's ways to track where reps are, different programs and platforms that, you can input data depending on the type of work you do. Yep. But when I would ride along with people and I see the valet driver shake their hand or give them a high five or know them by their name or say, hey, what happened that weekend with your kid? Or like, that says that this person's owning all of their relationships. Yeah. And this is a small thing, but it matters. When you go to the hospital, do they know their way around the hospital? Yeah. Not just, okay, we have a meeting with the C-suite, or we have a meeting with, the person in surgery, et cetera. But do they know the shortcuts to get to different portions of the hospital? To me, that shows me that they're working. Yeah. those are some of the first things that come to mind. I'm sure I could think of more, but
that's all that matters, because it goes back to preparation, perseverance,
absolutely,
grit. Are they actually doing the work and not just telling you? Because I just say that because one of the things we keep talking about is, even though the field rides, that's what they're supposed to be doing, a lot of managers don't always do those, right? Mm-hmm. Like, or they say they will, and it's once a year, right?
Yeah.
And like, I can say that because I've been a rep, and I also know a lot of reps, right? And they're like, well, I don't have a lot going on in my territory, but my manager's coming out, so I'm going to pack my Wednesday. So I have everything on Wednesday, but then Thursday, there's not much going on, right? And so I think that's just a great point of what you're saying, is because, again, it just goes into who are you hiring? And I think this is the thing I've heard multiple executives say at the medical device sales level, and that's why I get so passionate about what we do here, is they always say, I don't really care about the background, but I care about the person. And the one thing that I loved about it was one of the executives at Intuitive that we were at the NSN conference, and they said, they're like, the number one thing I look for in reps is, do they have that dog in them? Mm-hmm. Do they have that dog? Are they willing to fight? Are they willing to put in the long hours? Are they willing to go the extra mile? Are they willing to do everything that's needed to flip every stone that's unturned, even though it's not sexy, even though it takes a lot, even though they might not get paid right now for it?
Right.
And I think that's the thing that separates the person, but also going back to, also, do they actually just genuinely care about somebody? Because if you're just about yourself and doing your thing, you're not talking valet. Yeah. The valet's not asking about how your day was or your weekend was. Right. And I think that just goes so much of like, who are you actually getting when you're hiring? And I think that's what a lot of times, me personally, I see so many companies miss, is like, even for example, we have a guy coming from the league right now, and he was a coach. And it's like, most people don't know. I know, and because you saw him, most people don't know the coaches, when they started in like their D1 or D2 or like getting their start, they got $1,000 stipend for the whole month, and they're working 14-hour days, doing 2-a-days with practices and making no money and making everything meet. Yeah. And it's like, but they're like, oh, they don't have this background, so I won't even look at them. And it's like, I actually just did this for one of our guys, and I went to a major corporation. I was like, you're about to miss out on one of the best people that you've ever actually interviewed in your life because of the resume that you're telling me you need. I was like, just get him in a room with you. And then if you hate him, never talk to him again. Yeah. And I just wanted to put that out there just to encourage somebody, is like, don't focus so much on the background. Don't focus so much on what your resume says, but like, who are you as a person? And this is my biggest thing, is everyone has a strength. Everyone's a blessing to somebody. Everyone can bring their story across that's going to make them different, and that the different or the uniqueness is what makes you special. Yeah. Right. And I think that's just something that I get really passionate about, and I love it, because you coming from the small town to then going to Vanderbilt, then going to the NFL, then every step made you James to a whole nother level that nobody will ever be able to compete with James, because they didn't have the same upbringing. They didn't have the same background. They didn't have the same experiences. And I think that's what I really love. And you're just saying, hey, that's who I'm betting on in the person. And that person's going to show me their character of what they're actually doing in this territory, rather than just telling me what they've done.
Absolutely. So I think one thing, Jacob, that's important that I learned later on in life was, if I'm looking for an individual contributor, I do want to see those traits of hustle, finding a way to win when there's no way to win. One of the things that I think people don't know how to do fully is tell their story. And this is what I meant by when I just said I learned later on in life. I had a gentleman, a friend of mine, known for years, a guy named Marty Ellis. He told me for probably 10 years, he said, James, like, you're doing well in your career. You need to go to Toastmasters. You need to go to Dale Carnegie. You need to do these extra things that'll help you work on your presentation skills and how you communicate. He didn't say presentation skills, he said communication. And in my mind, I'm thinking, dude, I have like a master's degree from like one of the top universities in this country. I did well. Like, I can communicate, But a lot of times people can see things in you that you can't see, good or bad.
Yes.
And for me, it took me probably a decade later that I listened to him finally, and I went through these specific types of courses that help you work on telling your own story. it helps you become a better salesperson. So if I would offer any advice to anyone, and really I should offer the advice to myself because I haven't specifically done these types of trainings in a while because I finished them, but I can pick back up again to gain practice. When you are interviewing for an opportunity, whether it's entry level or at an executive level, how clearly you speak through your story and why you are a good fit for the opportunity means more. It brings your resume to life.
Yes.
Whether you're in person or you're on a Teams meeting or on Zoom.
Yep.
And sometimes people don't have the practice to do that.
Yep.
They're just not good enough at it, even though they physically and mentally can do the job.
Yep.
And personality-wise can do the job. Yep. But in that 64-minute meeting, they just didn't clearly articulate why they're the perfect person for that opportunity.
Yep.
That takes practice, and I think it's not spoken about enough as people want to progress in med device.
That is so spot on, just for the fact of, like, we were actually just having a talk on our drive down here where it's like, going back to my conversation, I told AJ, I was like, hey, make sure you really focus on how he carries himself, how he speaks, how he presents. Like, it goes into, you can tell you've done the training. You can tell you've done the work. And because, again, most people, especially a lot of reps are very extroverted, can talk with anybody, very energetic.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we think that's all it takes.
Right.
But when you start getting into the executive roles, that's just a piece of what it takes. And also, can you walk out of there and they know without a doubt, when they're paying those salaries and they're paying those kind of plans, do they know without a doubt James is going to come in and absolutely crush it and be the right person? All right, so you went from sales associate to middle management, and then you had a couple roles in between before you got into Medtronic. Can you kind of share some of those experiences?
Yeah. So before that, there was a step where a few things we're leaving out as far as I had a job where I was, I would say, a junior corporate accounts person.
Okay.
Right. So that was a great experience for me because I was focusing on the administrative customer about 80% of the time. And then there was the key opinion leading physicians or implanters that were important for our business.
Yep.
That was a great role for me because I saw the power that the hospitals had versus what the surgeons had or used to have.
Yep.
You just can't say, hey, Dr. Jacob, can you ask for this at the next VAT meeting? Oh, sure, we'll get it in a month, maybe 2 at the most.
Yep.
Those days are over with, right? So that happened. My marketing role was really important because it helped me understand the ins and outs of, at that time, from my vantage point with Boston Scientific, the different parts of left atrial appendage closure and why Watchman became the force it is now today. That helped me understand and helped set me up for an opportunity to be able to interview. Listen, I never thought I would actually leave Boston Scientific. It was kind of a crazy situation where I was working doing my marketing role, and I knew I wouldn't be in it forever. I knew I wanted to go back into a sales leadership role, but I thought it would be with Boston Scientific. It just so happens that when I was out working, I would see a ton of people from Medtronic, oftentimes leaving Jacksonville very early in the morning, catching planes, and seeing other people on the plane who happen to be with other companies, having conversations. Years ago, when I won my first P Club, when we spoke about that a little bit earlier, as a rep, Medtronic reached out to me and I told them no. I was just hitting my stride as a sales rep. I wanted to, win some more. So I said no, thanks, but thank you for the interest, but the answer is no. So fast forward in time, probably more than a decade later, I am doing well. I'm putting a little bit of heat on Medtronic at some specific hospitals that we're trying to grow in and had a focus and a mission and a strategic plan. And one day, one of their folks just kind of pulled me aside at the hospital and said, hey, have you ever thought about an opportunity with us? And I had a great conversation with him. I had one or two other people who I knew in other cities actually call me and talk to me as well. And the transition really occurred when one of the individuals who talked to me about a decade earlier for an opportunity as a rep reached out to me again, like 11 years later. and this position was more, for a higher leadership level role.
Yep.
And our first 15 minutes of conversation was, oh my God, I remember you from like 10 years ago. We tried to get you then. And so that was a little bit of how things happened. But having genuine conversation about what I wanted in my next step in my career, which I had told people before, that's what I wanted.
Yep.
And seeing an opportunity to make that happen, it just made sense.
Yeah.
And I had no bridges burned with Boston Scientific. Nothing but good things to say about that company and the people that I worked with and worked around. But the opportunity was too good to say no to be able to stretch myself and grow. I had experience walking into a room and not knowing anyone, right? So going into surgical endoscopy, going into different facets of marketing, I didn't know anyone, and sometimes I'm leading some of these people. So it wasn't that big of a leap for me to do the same thing just outside the company. And I learned a ton in the around about 3 years that I was in the role I was in with Medtronic, and I'm super grateful and would do it all over again.
Yeah, and with that, what did you learn about yourself going into that VP role, where you're now, going from the associate where it's like, hey, I'm going to go be at the hospitals and the reps, and then everyone knows you as the rep. And then you go into, like we talk about, middle management, and now you have reps reporting to yourself. We're always learning new things. But then when you go into the leader that everyone's looking at, what did you learn about yourself through that time? I
felt like I would not be someone who had everyone else do the work. So I had to find the balance between me being a leader who's doing action and not just a keyboard king, but also being smart and delegating, letting people exercise their leadership potential and developing their muscles. So I feel like that's something I struggled with at first, but I learned pretty quickly.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. That's why I loved it. That's why I wanted to ask you that question, because again, with any new, especially a new company, if you just stayed in the new company, but now a new company with a new position, there's just so much learning that comes in, not even for just a normal person, but even for like the VP and everybody in that spot. And so absolutely love it. Now, the question I really want to ask, because I want to know, is for you being at Medtronic and being the VP of that division, for you, what was the most fun part?
The most fun part, I would honestly say, this is going to be an answer that sounds fun, but it was like things like P Club. Because I had an opportunity to see the excitement for those who won. So you go from awards night to the actual, weeks or months later, you're in Hawaii or you're in Costa Rica, or wherever you're at. And you see their significant other, and we're having conversations at dinner, and we're asking, what is it about your spouse who works for the company that makes them such a winner? And you go around the table and you hear everyone describe their spouse or their significant other, describe why they're good at their job, and they balance that with being a great husband or wife or being a great parent. Like, those are the things that to me are super, super fun. Now, in sales, I get it. Everything's about the numbers, being at 100% or above the plan. But oftentimes what I tell my team is, what I told my team was, and tried to show them, just don't quantify people, qualify people. So there are times when we had awards, and I made it a point not just to say this group was 107% to plan. I describe why this person's leadership, words that characterize how they work, who they are, why people follow them. Those are the things people will remember. My boss said this about me. My team said this about me, which equated to them being at 100% to plan or more. I feel like that's vitally important. And to me, that's fun. Because people remember how you make them feel, and they're motivated to go out and do it again the next year. I love that. So I could talk about that for a while, but to me, that's probably the funnest part of tough work.
No, I love it. And you literally took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say, the common talk in coaching, especially strength and conditioning, was, athletes don't care how you make them, or what you say to them. They care about how you make them feel, right? And that's just an overall saying for everybody, right? Nobody really cares about what you said to them, it's how you made them feel, and they'll remember that. And it was always like, in strength and conditioning, they're like, who cares what they can squat or whatever if you don't know their mom's name, right? Get to know the person, right? And so I think that's just something that, super special what you just said. I was like, it goes back again to that personable, hey, I get to have that relationship with them learn what makes them tick.
Absolutely.
And then actually help them be even more successful because they're going to be more motivated. So I love that. Now, what I'm really excited to get into is, you've had this climb, small town Alabama to VP at Medtronic. And the question I always want to ask is, most people will hear that and they'll be like, it must have just been an easy road. It must have been just like handouts. It must have just been like, it took some time.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any setbacks during that road?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, off the top of my head, there's been plenty of times where I've, interviewed for jobs and didn't get them. And that's disappointing, right? I think if anyone's human, they feel things and they want to know what could they do better. I think probably the thing that was the biggest setback for me that ended up probably propelling me a tad bit when it comes to my life in general, not just as a med device professional, was in 2019. I actually lost my spouse due to cancer. So we were married 13 months and she passed away. Crazy situation, just how life is at times. I had one child, she had 3, so we were a blended family. I assumed total responsibility for her kids, which obviously were our kids. Yeah. And it was one of those times when I realized, life just isn't fair. And it was someone, she was someone who, took care of herself, didn't really drink, barely drank socially, didn't smoke, didn't do, drugs, not even on any prescription medication. Like all those things that are aligned with this person is healthy. Yep. They were aligned with, but life is super random. So I felt like there was a time period for me to show my children that you have to make lemonade. As hard as it is, okay, yes. At the time, my company said, take as much time as you need. I took a couple of weeks off, but I felt like for me, I needed to get back into the rhythm of working. Yep. That's just how I'm built, without being calloused emotionally, So for me, I wanted to show my children that even though this is not by any means what we wanted, we still must focus on pushing forward. And it's okay to hurt, it's okay to feel a major setback, but what I learned from that was you have people watching you always. And the people who watch you, do they see a winner? Even though the day is not great, it's, technically, it's raining outside or bad things have happened. Do they see a winner? And in addition, I think I wanted to show them that when bad things happen to them, they need to keep pushing. And I feel like for me, it was, love them, take care of them. On Mother's Day, and the kids are older now, but on Mother's Day, I oftentimes will get a card from them as well as Father's Day. So I think that's that's super special. As heartfelt as that is, it's kind of funny now because it just shows that they saw me trying to meet their needs. But from a real life perspective and not just a professional perspective or athletic perspective, those type of things can really have people go down a road of negativity and everything falls apart. Yeah, that's it. That's like the breaking point. Right. Yeah. So, and I get it, relationships are really important. And sometimes when things go wrong, you can't go wrong with them, especially when other people are watching you. So that was probably the most recent, biggest setback that it made me work with more intention. It made me realize that who knows what tomorrow is for anyone. So I wasn't in a race to become a CEO at that point. I wasn't in a race, but I knew that I was going to make moves with work. And I just don't mean I'm trying to get the next job, but like how I think and what I do, it had more intention with it.
I was just gonna say, you're so much more intentional.
Absolutely.
Because it's
they're changing.
When you see that kind of stuff, and just first off, sorry, that is one of the toughest things. I say that, so my first year when I went to go hit quota with Medtronic, I lost my best friend to brain cancer, and it happened in about 2 months.
Wow.
And I just remember exactly what you're saying is most likely in those moments when it happened, I remember getting the call and they're saying, this is his last day, right?
Yeah.
I remember my manager called me about a problem, and I was like, we don't got no problems. Take care of it yourself, or whatever you got, right? Like, you just, in those moments, you realize what we actually think matters doesn't matter in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you find out what truly matters. But like you said, is we're all going to go through storms, and you went through that storm. But I just want to say, I think it's so encouraging and so inspirational that, like, you not only had to, like, show up, but you showed up for her kids, your kid.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
you had to take over, and like most people, just that they couldn't do. And being able to be like, hey, it's not fair. I wish this didn't happen. Like, I can play the victim, and everyone's going to actually be okay with it too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But like, I'm just going to get through this season, and I just want to put this encouragement to someone out there. It's like, maybe some days during those seasons, it's just making it to the next day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not trying to be
Yeah.
you didn't get all your emails done, you didn't do all the stuff. Maybe it's just you made it to the next day that day.
Yeah.
But then being able to bounce back, and I do just want to just say one thing that you said I love, that I'm a very similar way, is, I can take a couple weeks off work or a week off work, but what most people don't understand is that is actually the thing that helps us cope.
Therapy.
Yeah, it's the thing that we enjoy. It's the thing that we love. We love to, it gets us out of ourselves to go help other people and do that aspect of it. And I think a lot of people miss that. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, it's unhealthy, but I will always joke around. And I said, the thing that your coping mechanism, you didn't turn to drinking or drugs or whatever. It was like, I'm just going to go do more work and get better and financially help my family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think there's just something super special about that. And I just want to say, like, just hearing that, it goes in to just show, like, it wasn't even like you had some time off in between, and like they told you to take time off. But what I mean, guys, is like, you were actually still at your company, you were still at high position roles that like needed you. And so I just think that's absolutely amazing. Of like, I wanted people to just see, as everyone thinks that, when someone gets to a certain level, it must have just been an easy road.
No,
but everyone always has a story, right? Everyone has a story, and I think that's the thing I love about, whether it's top sales execs or entrepreneurs or business owners, it's like they all could write a book with all the things they've gone through.
Sure.
The stories they've done just to try to keep the lights on or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's what you said, is it's that winner spirit. Are they going to just keep getting up? And I just wanted to just lastly touch on the intentionality. I think when you lose somebody that you truly love and truly care about, it changes perspective on all of life, because, you might be thinking this career or this thing matters so much at this moment, but then sometimes you can notice that maybe you're taking a little more time, so you didn't take as many risks because of what somebody else said or whatever, and then you just get this click of like, why does any of that matter? I'm just going to actually just go for it because this is my goal.
Absolutely.
And it helps you, like you said, be more intentional and just go, and crazy what can happen in a short amount of time that then gets you there instead of drawing out the timeline.
So I love the fact that you just said that, because I think it aligns with my second portion of answer, which I was going to share. But when you go through something traumatic from a personal perspective, it helps you realize that you can handle big rejection. So for me, to answer your question, my part B answer was, what I just recently experienced, and my position being eliminated, much of my leadership team's positions being eliminated, and now me no longer being a VP of sales at a fantastic company. What is my next step? The short answer is I'm figuring it out, right? Yeah. But I think I've grown to not personalize. I'll just use the term rejection. Yeah. And listen, this happens every day in all industries. So it's not just medical device, right? Exactly. But for me, it made me. I'm taking the time, because it's been now just over a month of my separation. It's given me an opportunity to think through, what do I value? I value a certain type of leadership, a leadership that the thing that they say in front of 3 people that are really important within the company, that message is the same with 300 or 3,000. So consistency. I value, if it's a sales role, that's my next step. Am I promoting something that's solving a problem that a surgeon has? Is it really solving a problem, or is it something that's a Me Too or something less than that? I don't know what the future holds, but I can see the momentum and energy that surgeons have when they are using something that's meeting a need for patients that they didn't have before. And that's a beautiful thing. Like, that really marries what industry should be for healthcare. So that's important to me as well. Those are two things I think about. I'm sure I'll think about more in the next several days and weeks as I kind of go on this journey. But honestly, it's been good for me to. I'm not someone who's taken a ton of vacation. Yeah. I think you and I are maybe similar in that way. So I haven't taken a ton of vacation, and even my vacations maybe have been my president's clubs, which technically is still work if you're around your employer and employees, et cetera. But it's caused me to focus on family and friends and do more for the people who are in my general circle, but know that I have a intention on being great in my career, and I have an opportunity to take a breath and think and have conversations and make decisions on, okay, they're interested in me, but this is the thing that makes me not interested in them, or whatever this conversation might be. Yeah. Or someone may say, we love James, so we don't like him because of this, right? It could go on either end. So that's my thought. I mean, honestly, setbacks are things that help you grow if you use them the right way.
Yep, setbacks are a part of life, and I always just tell our people is like, failure is not failure; it's a learning. Failure is only failure if you allow it to be failure, right? I want to touch base on, when people hear like, oh my gosh, they eliminated high positions, right? What about the lower positions? And what if I'm in medical device sales? And it's like, we always just have to have the understanding of, no matter what industry you're in, there's going to be, layoffs, and there's going to be eliminations, they're going to be adding on. And so I just say that because, again, also why I smile when you say what you just said is, first off, you're going to have no problem finding a job at all and having a company come to you and be like, hey, we want you. That's number one. But number two, what I'm so excited about for you is you're finally getting that time to have that breathing room. Because when you're in it, you don't usually get to see it. Yeah. But now, I know you can feel this because I've been in similar situations, but right now you probably have an excitement you might not have felt for a long time. Because it's an excitement, but it also can be a little fearful of like, where's the future going? Where am I going to end up? But there's so many different opportunities, and you can do a lot of different things. And so that's what's exciting about this. And so I'm really excited for you. Now, for you, we don't know where it goes, but where do you see James over the next 12 to 24 to 36 months, if it all played out really well for yourself, in the opportunity of continuing to grow your career?
So in that time frame, I think for me, as a next step in most med device companies, if you're a VP, a step forward would be a general manager. So you're over more than just sales. You could be over marketing, you could be over finance, you could be over R&D, et cetera. You might have some OUS experience or responsibilities. And then after that, a lot of companies have presidents, and then you really go up from there all the way up to the CEO. I think for me, I do believe I have the capacity to be able to be a GM. That's something I would like to do. Yep. Obviously, I haven't done it before, but I've watched people in front of me who are good at their job, how they move, how they lead, and I feel like I can imitate that. Yep. So I would say, just to give you an answer right now, that would be my immediate first thought. But there's so much out there that, as I've been, kind of out there as of late to understand what are the needs for med device leadership in 2025, it's much different than it was 10, 15 years ago. So who knows? But my short answer would be a GM. But I would love something that's going to align me with great company vision, great product portfolio, and leadership that I'm going to learn from and be able to grow. And I think that's it. Yeah, I don't want to get long-winded on that.
I love that. And the reason I just asked you that question is because when you say, hey, you've never done it before, but you feel like you'd be strong, like, I know you'd be strong just because, hey, I get to talk to these people every single day or every single week, but also just like you had never been a regional sales manager or in marketing or a VP every single time, somehow you continue to figure it out. it all worked out. And so I'm really excited for you, James. And I just want to say, first off, thank you so much for taking time to come meet with us and just be on the podcast and just share your journey and your story.
Absolutely.
Because I know there's going to be somebody, whether it's someone from a small town, somebody who, went and was a college athlete or played in the pros, or someone who just feels like they don't fit in somewhere else, that they're going to be like, it's possible. And I know I learned so much on this podcast, but I truly just want to say thank you, because it's truly amazing to watch people not let limits hold them back. Not set limits on themselves, and just continuing to go after the dreams that get put on their heart, and just say, hey, I'm gonna figure it out, and no matter the setback, they just keep going. And it's just been an absolute pleasure, and it's amazing to see where you've been and where you are, and know where you're going. And I just can't wait to see what company decides to grab you up before too soon, because it's going to be absolutely amazing. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Well, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to, kind of share my thoughts and feelings and my background. When I saw you at NSN, we had a great conversation, and I actually noticed how you were kind of working that entire room. And I said to myself, okay, that guy's about his business. And Michael Dubois wanted us to meet as well. So that was an additional blessing for me to say, okay, I gotta get with Jacob. But just to finalize this point, life is funny. It's funny in that sometimes all that matters is, are you thinking about getting better? Are you really wanting to improve? And if you do that, good things happen. And it's not just in business. Obviously, we're talking about med device, and it can relate to higher sales if you want to be a sales rep, et cetera. But if you have the desire to not be stuck, but find a way to be a little bit uncomfortable and grow, amazing things can happen, both professionally, athletically, in your personal life. And that's what life is all about, because you have no idea what you can do long term. But if you choose to keep pushing yourself, great things can happen. So I want to thank you for this opportunity, baby, to be a part of your platform. Dude, I think you're a rock star. You have a long runway ahead of you, and if I could help you out in any way, I'm more than willing.
Hey, I truly appreciate it. Right back at you. It's going to be a fun journey. And this is the other thing I just want to state for everybody is what you just said is what happens when you are really focused on business and work and wanting to be with other people like that. You also create personal relationships, and it's what people don't understand is it's actually the personal relationships that you never know where the world takes you.
Right.
And whether it's in medical device sales or outside of medical device sales, that's what people don't understand. That's what I truly love, is just connecting with, like you said, hey, let's just try to find 3 or 4 other people and getting the opportunity to meet someone like yourself. I just want to say, it's truly amazing to get to meet someone who's been a professional athlete, who's been able to have all the success that you have had. And it's no surprise, and I just want to say it's awesome. And I just, again, thank you for taking time and just speaking with our listeners, because the whole goal is just to give back, and I know you're always giving back, and so I just want to say thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. And you guys, if you're interested about learning more about medical device sales, you guys can click the link below. Just understand anything is possible. If you have a dream of going after your goals, just have to do it. Do the work. If you guys ever have any questions or feel like we can help you, please feel free to reach out. But until next time, keep going after your dreams. See you on the next one. Peace.